Sure. So Roofstock really is an investment marketplace in the United States, principally, for single-family rental investors. So what we've created is a platform that is effectively providing real estate as a service for investors. So what does that mean? It's sort of like the cloud. It's like Salesforce. You don't have to buy your own servers and software in that context. So you could come to us with a strategy, a desire to invest in real estate, and basically rent our platform. And everything from the underwriting to the acquisitions, property and asset management, and ultimate disposition. You just pay us fees along the way to do it. And you could leverage our platform, which we've been really working on for the last 8 years. And have invested a lot of money, a lot of time and treasure in it. And the more users that come use it, the better and better it gets. Well, it's one of the things that drew me to real estate is it's a massive addressable market with a lot of kind of structural inertia. You have a lot of incumbent players who have done very well the way things have been set up. There's a lot of fees, things complex, there's not a lot of transparency. So the way that real estate has been set up really benefits large scale players. And so I like to say it's a perfect example of the innovator's dilemma. If you're doing just fine, why innovate? Why change it? And so a lot of the innovation tends to need to come from the outside, from groups who can sort of understand the way things are going, and then approach it, maybe applying new technologies or different ways of thinking about the same problems. And I think it's starting to change now, really because you have had some new sort of disruptive players come in and a lot of new technologies that have come to bear where you almost can't ignore it. You ignore it at your own peril. And I really think a lot, things like cloud computing, mobile computing, introduction of now AI, which we're starting to see a rapid adoption of, you kind of have to either embrace it or prepare to get lapped by groups that can now do things very efficiently using technology. So a lot of not all of the incumbent players are slow, but a lot of them are. And so a lot of them are getting dragged kicking and screaming to innovation. Well, there are a few categories, I think, when you think about the applications for these things. One is sort of democratization is kind of one theme that I like to think about. It's, it provides better access. You could, for example, tokenization can break down very large investments into small investments, and so it makes it more accessible. And I think by doing that, you're generally creating more liquidity by allowing more investors to participate. There's efficiency aspects to this as well because AI, for example, can answer questions from customers coming in real time and get them the answers that they want. And that's a great application. Chatbots are a great application for, say, repair and maintenance requests and getting those requests routed to the right vendors and then tracking all that. And that provides a better customer experience, so they're happier and a much lower cost for the manager. So it's kind of a win-win. And so whenever you have those types of things, it's just a no-brainer. And so you're seeing a pretty rapid adoption of a lot of these tools in some of those areas. So you've got this, efficiency element that happens because of this technology and better transparency. So when you think about blockchain, one of the issues with real estate trades is there's an inherent asymmetry of information between buyers and sellers. The sellers always know more. They've owned the property. And then the buyer gets maybe a disclosure package, and there's a lot of, try to pack a lot of information in there. It's really hard to process. The nice thing about the blockchain is, everything could be shared, and everyone's seeing the same information. So, for example, we have tokenized some homes and made all that information available. So now the owner of the token has the same information as the potential future buyer of the token. And so one would think that should lead to more efficient pricing and kind of a meeting of the minds on what something's really worth. And then also I think there's this kind of when you think about adaptability, so because these models, AI learns from itself, right? And so in theory, you don't make the same mistake multiple times. So it gets better and better, smarter and smarter. So you're seeing more accurate valuation models, more predictive analytics that keep getting better. The more users that use it, like I was saying that with Roofstock, the more people who use our platform, the more data we get, the more we could drive down our costs, the more we could bring down our pricing, and that creates a competitive moat. So when you think about AI, it's very, very similar in that regard. The more it's used, the better it gets, and then people get more and more confidence in its outputs. So it's pretty interesting. It seems to go back and forth. There are some pros and cons to OpCo and PropCo. I would say, at least in the tech world, there's more of a preference to separate OpCo and PropCo. Maybe there's some common investors, but likely there are different investors who want property level exposure, which are targeting real estate asset level returns. And then you have the PropCo, or the OpCo investors rather, who are looking for venture type returns. And so you get the venture capital folks who want that exposure, the institutions who want real estate exposure here, and maybe there's some crossover. Maybe the PropCo gets some warrants or something in the OpCo as a sweetener, and so there's some ways to do that. So I think that at least in Silicon Valley, where I'm based, is a preferred model generally, because venture investors don't like capital intensive models, and those are inherently capital intensive. So I think there's sort of different approaches. It depends on kind of scale you have and what type of investors at least you're starting with and what kind of exposure they're looking for.